Hello and welcome to another episode of the Unpop Podcast. I am the co-host, the chef cooking up the content, Odie Matthews, they, them. With me is not anybody. Kevin Miner, he, him is not here. We, unfortunately, over the weekend kind of missed each other for various reasons. I was working on Saturday and then ended up, because the weather lied to me, instead of it being cloudy and chilly, it was hot and sunny. I got really bad sunburn and just was super under the weather on Sunday. And then Kevin, he's just a busy bee. That man literally does something every day from like 4:30 in the morning to 9 o'clock at night. It's kind of insane, but also mad respect for somebody that can have the energy to do that, because I definitely don't. If you do, let us know. Write into an email that Kevin will create at some point. Not this episode, because I'm not going to do that. But Kevin will create an email eventually. But Kevin's doing great. A couple weeks ago, he did what we called like a little housekeeping episode. It's just something that we do when one of us isn't around. And since he is not around, it is my turn to fill this lovely episode with things going on and going about. But because Kevin was so nice in what he said about me when he did his housekeeping episode, I want to say something nice about Kevin. Kevin is great. Look, if you don't, I feel so lucky and privileged that I know Kevin in real life and have known Kevin for a while, because he is literally just one of the coolest people. And I know that sounds like 2006 to be like he's cool, but he's literally always fun. He's always positive. When you're having a bad time, he is always there, lifts you up. When I'm going through stuff and like I talk to him about it, it just instantly makes me feel better. So Kevin's great. That's what I want to say. I want to say that Kevin is great, because he is. Kevin, you are great. As for housekeeping, Kevin and I had an interesting conversation today about some things that I wanted to talk about on here. We talked last episode. I did my Frontier flights back to back to back for my YouTube channel. For those of you that don't know, that listen to this, I started out on YouTube about 4 years ago. It's how I really got into everything. I've always had a camera in my hand since I was a kid. I loved Polaroid photos. I loved Kodiak photos when you used to wind up them and take the film into like CVS and get your photos developed. That was stuff that when I was a child, I've always had a camera or a camcorder in my hand. When I was a kid, we actually went on a couple road trips that we filmed, and I did some of that filming and turned it into DVDs, and those are lost forever. Do not ask for them, because that is 7-year-old Odie Matthews and nobody wants to see them. But point being is that I've always loved doing stuff behind a camera, whether it be photo, film, editing, whatever it is. So 4 years ago, when I decided to buy a cheap Canon Rebel off the Facebook Marketplace and start doing YouTube, because I had a bag collection from my time in the military, specifically when I was overseas, I just bought way too many bags and had to ship way too many bags home. And I did that because I love them all. And I just kind of started this journey on YouTube of just doing bag reviews and in my room when I was living with 3 other roommates at the time. And here I am 4 years later, still doing it. And I was talking to Kevin, and after 4 years of doing bag reviews and creating content, it's something that I really love. I love creating. I love creating probably way more than I love consuming. And that could be really any type of content, but I just love creating, whether it's my own stuff or doing my freelance work or helping other people do stuff or whatever it is. If it's something that can be created, it's just something that I've always enjoyed, especially in this realm. And with that, I think eventually, inevitably, you face a burnout of some sort. And I think after 4 years of doing bag reviews, it's okay for me to look back and go, okay, this was a good time of doing bag reviews on YouTube, but now I'm ready for something else. And that's where I've reached, or what I've reached rather, in this journey of doing YouTube is I'm going to finish out this year doing bag reviews and continuing to work with the companies that I really enjoy and have really come to know and love, and continue to do that for the remainder of this year. But I also know that, and I am at the end of this year, going to be most likely pivoting my channel into something a little different, still in the travel sphere as somebody who literally took 8 Frontier flights for fun. That was more than anything. It just kind of sounded like a fun time to me. And besides being extremely tired from the lack of sleep the night before the trip started, it was very fun and I had a fantastic time. But I want to create more travel content that is more in line with taking 8 Frontier flights or doing more travel vlogs or travel related content. And the reason I say all this to you, the lovely listener, is not because I'm just telling you all about my channel, but because that burnout, I think it's important to recognize when we reach burnouts in our life, regardless of what it's facing. And I think it's okay if it's something that we love or maybe once loved, but don't feel the same completely for it. I think it's okay to say, okay, this was a good part of my life. This was a good journey. This is a good spot to end it. And that is, I think, what I'm approaching with YouTube. For those of you that don't know as well, more housekeeping notes, gossip on myself, I am getting ready to launch a Kickstarter campaign for crowdfunding for a short film that I wrote. I've hired a producer and we've been in pre-production now for a little over a month, getting ready to try to raise the funds to go to the next step, because we talk about movies. I talk about movies quite a bit on this podcast. Every topic, I'm probably going to approach it with some kind of movie or TV show where Kevin will, bring it back to not Steven Seagal. Who was it? Oh my God, Kevin's yelling right now. It wasn't Steven Seagal. Was it Steven Seagal? Jean-Claude Van Damme. Like Kevin will bring it back to someone like Jean-Claude Van Damme, whereas I will bring it back to movies. I love movies, always love movies, and opportunities to direct one, and not only direct a movie, but direct a story that took me over a year to write, that is very personal and emotional and driven by that love of film and love of creativity and love of creation itself. I'm very excited to share stuff like that with people. And I think that sometimes we fall in love with something like doing bag reviews on YouTube and we anchor ourselves to just one thing. And sometimes we want to do more than that. And it can be either scary, challenging, or even just not something that we're prepared to do when we want to maybe change it up a little bit. And I think that's totally fine. And I think that's something that Kevin and I kind of talk about regularly off the pod all the time. I mean, we have probably 30-minute phone conversations, maybe every other day at the very least, offsite. And then we talk for hours on the weekend doing a podcast. But we talk about a variety of things, and it's just, I think that recognizing those things is always going to be important. And that was what we talked about today, which gave us the idea for this housekeeping, as well as the idea for our next episode topic, which is going to be revolving around dads, because Kevin, as he says, is in single dad mode, and he is neither of those things. He's not technically a dad, and he is not technically single. So that is funny to me and always will be funny to me. But yeah, other than that, housekeeping notes, not much to say. This is definitely not going to be as long as Kevin's. I cannot fill 20 minutes of me sitting here and just talking, mainly because I do that all the time with YouTube and everything else. And eventually you get tired of your own voice. But I will talk about jams because I've been jamming. I watched the whole series of Twisted Metal on Peacock. Great. Look, if you're a fan of Anthony Mackie, which who isn't, and Stephanie Beatrice, who you might know from Brooklyn Nine-Nine fame, she plays Rosa Diaz. Those two are a surprisingly funny combo. You also got Thomas Hayden Church playing this evil agent that's kind of tracking them down. And then Will Arnett is the voice of Sweet Tooth, who is just one hell of a character. It's a very good show. It's a very brisk 10 episodes, 30 minutes each. It doesn't really, it's exactly what you'd want something called Twisted Metal, which is based off a video game of cars that like shoot at each other with rockets and machine guns and stuff. It's like Death Race, essentially, but video game form. And in a era where a lot of video game adaptations don't really land, if we're being totally honest. I mean, the ones we've gotten recently have been Halo, which, if you're a fan of the Halo games and lore, I feel like that was not good. I did not think it was very good. We had, I think recently, or maybe in 2016, can't really remember, Uncharted with Tom Holland and Mark Wahlberg. That was not good. We've had Tomb Raider movies that aren't good recently. It's just a lot of video game misses. And I think that's a hard format to adapt, just like, and Kevin and I have talked about this too, adapting anime to live action is also difficult because there are things that you can do in anime or animation or even in a video game that don't exactly translate to live action unless you have a giant budget. And even then, I mean, then you kind of just get into the territory of doing Avatar the Blue People, which is just all mocap. But anyways, this is just a long-winded way of saying Twisted Metal is very great for what it is in a realm where video game adaptations are pretty poor. So it's fine. It's a good watch if you want something fun and dumb. I had it on in the background for the most part, but it's not bad. It's a pretty good story. I also watched The Silo, almost finished it. We have like one episode left. Kevin likes to talk a lot about how Apple TV doesn't miss. And as someone who decided to dive into Apple TV, I watched 9 episodes of The Silo. I've watched almost the complete first season of Foundation. I watched Severance. And I started watching The After Party. Kevin was absolutely correct. Apple TV so far has not missed for me except for the show Invasion, which I also heard that once it gets going, it's not bad. But again, I watched 3 episodes of that and it didn't get going. So don't think I'll be going back. But if you want a really good, engaging mystery, thriller, drama, like there's layers to it, Silo has it all. There's a mystery, there's drama, there's everything I just named that I'm just going to name again, I guess. It's got a really good lead with Rebecca Ferguson, who you might know from the Mission Impossible fame, playing Isla Faust. She's fantastic in this. And Tim Robbins, who you might know from Shawshank Redemption fame, is in this. And Common, who you might know from, oh my God, I think the only thing I know Common from is like the Suicide Squad. The first Suicide Squad in 2016. What else has Common been in? I know he's done some voice acting and stuff. Oh, John Wick Chapter 2. He's in John Wick Chapter 2. Common is great. He plays kind of like a villain in this. Silo is just super engaging. I think I might know how it's going to end the first season. I might have figured it out. But it's a very, very, very engaging and very good show. Same with Foundation. I know Kevin's talked about it. I will talk about it now too. Foundation is, in my opinion, a Lord of the Rings meets Dune meets like Star Wars vibe. And maybe the Lord of the Rings is a little out of place, but it does give me like a fantasy sci-fi vibe. I think Lee Pace, who you might know, I guess that's my catchphrase this episode, from Guardians of the Galaxy. He was the first Ronan the Accuser. He is great. Honestly, the rest of the cast is pretty unknown to me, which I kind of like. I like seeing unknowns. It means that more people are getting work. So fantastic show. Foundation, if you like Dune, if you like Star Wars, if you like the fantasy elements kind of Lord of the Rings, I think Foundation is really, really, really solid. And I think that's about it. Oh, well, jams in terms of music, something I always like to recommend. Big fan. My summer recap for YouTube Music came out like yesterday, time of recording. So I'm just going to say that these 5 artists are my 5 recommendations because these were my 5 top artists played. So I would say you should check out Noah Kahan if you want more of like an independent folk indie kind of elements of rock music. A lot of his music and lyrics are very emotional, very weighted, very heavy. I really enjoy listening to him just when I want to be in the feels a little bit, but also when I want to be uplifted. He's just fantastic dude, fantastic writer, fantastic music. Number 2 was Post Malone. I love Post Malone. He's great. He's awesome. His new album self-entitled Austin is great. I feel like it's one of his more emotional written albums compared to like Beer Bongs and Bentleys and Hollywood's Bleeding. Fantastic. I'm a big Post Malone fan. If you like Post Malone, I think you'll absolutely love this album. Number 3 was no surprise is Bad Omens, which I'm surprised wasn't number 1. Bad Omens is by far my favorite band or group because I like to separate my bands from like solo artists. So like Post Malone and Noah Kahan, yes, they have bands, but I wouldn't say they're my favorite bands. They're my favorite artists. Whereas Bad Omens, I mean, like they are just incredible. I love Bad Omens. If you like Sleep Token or maybe even a little elements of Ghost, but Ghost is more dad rock. But I would say that Ghost being number 4 on my list, I would recommend. I got to see them in person Out Here, which was just an incredible experience. I love Ghost. And then number 5 was Sleep Token. And I feel like Bad Omens and Sleep Token are pretty close together in their types of music. All of those artists are fantastic, and all of those artists kind of range a little bit differently in their music styles and tastes, but all I feel personally have really powerful lyrics. And we've talked, my partner and I, before about there's kind of like 2 types of listeners, really, when you break it down to people that listen to music. And one type is those that listen more to the lyrics and care more about the message of the song. And then those who don't really listen to the lyrics necessarily, or maybe pay attention to them, or like really hear everything they're saying and pay more attention to the instruments and the beats and the flow and things like that. And a lot of people go, oh, I'm a little bit of both. But ultimately, I think you're more one than the other. And for me, I'm definitely somebody that cares more about the lyrics and the message and maybe like the reasoning behind the song. And typically with artists, if they have a sound that I like, then I want to care more about the lyrics because I like the message. And I feel like all of those bands that I just named have really just incredible and very unique to their own writing styles. I love, and pretty open about it on the pod, and Kevin and I have talked about it before, but I love like the message of Bad Omens and Ghost a little bit, which some might say have like satanic elements, but really they just, instead of painting one side of something, they like to paint a different side of something. I think that's great. Whereas like Noah Kahan and Post Malone really write more about their feelings and write more about like real things. And a lot of what Noah Kahan writes about is things that he's experienced, things that he knows other people has experienced, real things that people have gone through, real things that people have felt, which I know you can say that about a lot of bands, and there's a lot of bands that have, a lot of thought behind their lyrics, but I would argue that there's a lot of artists and bands that don't have a lot of thought behind the lyrics and maybe just write and sing about things that maybe just sound good or maybe are a little catchy. But those are my jams. That's what I guess I wanted to talk about in the housekeeping, having the floor to myself with no Kevin to tell me I'm wrong, which means that all of this is right. But honestly, if you're listening to this and if you listen to the Unpop podcast, thank you for being a listener. Thank you for being here. This podcast, I know Kevin and I both just love doing it. We love everything about it, and we love that we get to do it, and we love that you listen to it. So with all of that being said, I will end this like I end a YouTube video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Don't forget to thank you for, we thank you. And you, man, this is why Kevin does the outro. I don't have any, you know what? I just realized Kevin wanted me to upload this and I don't have the theme music, so thanks for listening, everybody. Yeah, that's good. I'm gonna use that.